All right, everyone, welcome to our webinar today. This is John Yarbrough from Appulate. I'm our MGA and carrier specialist here. If you haven't met me before or talked to me before, I sure hope we do in the future. And today we're going to be going through OCR, or Optical Character Recognition, for ACORD data. So I'm going to show you how Appulate handles primarily scanned faxed ACORD forms, how we're able to take data directly off of those forms, convert them into XML or industry standard ACORD XML, and be able to move that into whatever systems and workflows you may be using. And also, I can show you a little bit about Appulate's system and how we ingest that data as well, in case you don't have a portal or system that you're using. So we'll kind of go around to a few different things today. Primarily, we're going to be focused on just that intake process. So this is a pretty quick demo, but let's go over some logistics real quick, because today will kind of really depend on you folks that are on this call today and what you want to see, because we can certainly go through a number of different things. So Appulate's been around for quite a long time, and we've developed a lot of different solutions. But real quick, again, just some webinar logistics. You should have a little side bar that looks just like the image on this screen here. Hopefully everyone's able to see my screen. By the way, if at any time you're having a difficult time hearing me, you don't see my screen, something's wrong, I won't be able to help everybody, but let me know and I can just double check some things, just due to generally the situation in the country. Everyone's using these webinars, go to webinar Zoom and different things, and I've noticed a few glitches here and there. So I apologize for that if that comes up, but please let me know. And the best way to do that is just on the side, ask a question, or just type it in that question bar to say, hey, we can't hear you, the screen's not showing, something like that, and I'll be happy to go in and just make sure it is. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or something you'd like to see, just type that right in that question section, and I'll be happy to address that throughout the webinar. So I have my little question pop up on the other screen, so I'm always watching that. So no need to wait till the very end, although at the end I will just take a minute and go through any questions you may have. But I promise I won't think you're rude if you ask some questions, because I do have everybody muted right now, just because there are a number of folks on the call, and just for the sake of the webinar, we want to keep that to just that question box, if you don't mind. But let's go ahead and start going through some stuff here, because this is a very exciting webinar, because OCR does come up a lot. We still have a lot of agents out there that do submit ACORD forms via fax or something they've scanned and they've emailed it to you. And a number of companies are wondering, how the heck can we take those ACORD forms in, bridge that data across to our systems without having to pay a bunch of money to outsource this, or use internal resources, or of course try to make something at home that's going to work half the time. There are a number of other solutions out there, other companies that do some OCR, but I would say Appulate, we've been around the longest, we've been doing this for the longest. We've probably got more carrier partnerships and MGA partnerships than anybody out there with a platform like this. And of course, we've got probably the most agents in one place than anybody else. Not to sit here and just brag about Appulate the whole time, but it does make a difference. And we'll certainly kind of go into that a little bit and why that makes a difference. So if you're not familiar with who Appulate is, I do have the screen up here. If you do want a copy of this, I will be sending out a recording of this video, so feel free to read through this, and any of these slides you see today, you'll be able to see when I send that recording out. But just very briefly, like I said, we've been around for about 15 years. We've been servicing the insurance industry for over 15 years now. We actually just had our 15th birthday about a month or two ago. And since inception, our whole purpose has really been to try to automate the entire workflow process. It started with carriers and MGAs, where all we wanted to do was be able to ingest these ACORD forms, parse these forms, extract data, and then bridge that into your systems. And of course, like any technology company out there, we've adapted and changed some of what we're doing and how we're interacting with various carriers and MGAs, because nobody works the same. Nobody's using exactly the same workflow in technology. We all have different ways of doing business, but the one thing I really like about Appulate is we are very adaptive, and I would say we've seen most situations. I get really excited when we see something new, and different, but for the most part, it all comes down to how can we standardize things for the agents, make things easier for them, but of course internally as well. There's no need to have anybody on staff sitting there keying in data, trying to constantly read handwritten stuff or fact stuff. Let's make a very streamlined process that can automate most of that. And if we still have agents that are doing those things, we can handle that as well. So we've built an entire platform that's used by about 80% of all retail agents in the country. And the reason that they use it so much is because we have so many partners on our platform. We've got hundreds of different carriers, MGAs, all in pretty much a standardized workflow. And it doesn't matter if you are using a portal or you want to use our customizable portal, or you have a completely different workflow or combination of everything I just said. We're going to find a way to put Appulate in that process to completely automate at least a portion of it, if not the entire process, from ingestion of information to moving that data to carrier portals if you're an MGA, or to a back-end system or rating system, or even using Appulate's full automated rate quote bind within our system. So again, there's so many different things we can do, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into some of those options and give you an idea of what that looks like. But again, today's focus is on that ingestion. How can we get ACORD form data into whatever system you're using, regardless of what systems you have or what your process looks like. So real quick, again, I'm going to share this video so you guys can see what this looks like. But because Appulate has such a large footprint, this is a big deal to a lot of people. So if this was a tool you want to use internally, feel free, but we also have options where you're able to distribute products out to the largest agency network in the country. So if these are things that are important to you, this is probably a separate demo we want to dive into. So feel free to reach out to me and we can dig into those things. I'll share my contact information at the end. So let's hop into OCR. So what is OCR? I'm sure either everybody on this call has heard of it, you know what it is, you're shopping for it, or you've just heard OCR, or optical character recognition, or text recognition being thrown around. A lot of companies are trying to find ways to, again, automate that process, ingesting that information. And we realize that agents are not all the same. Some agents are really tech savvy. They want to find a way to interact with you in a instant, automated fashion through a portal, using smartphones and tablets, and they're 100% up to speed with everything that we're all doing. And then, of course, there's a number of agents that feel like they're left a little bit behind. They have older systems. They still handwrite things or fax ACORD forms. So how do you create a system that can handle both of these without necessarily excluding people? Well, I think we solve this problem a number of different ways. Obviously, today we're going to be talking about OCR. So if we have somebody who is not interested in our portal or building an easier process for them, we can still ingest this information. And OCR is optical character recognition. It essentially does exactly what I've described. It's a technology that is able to distinguish printed, handwritten, scanned, in this case, ACORD forms, being able to recognize that data directly on something like that form, pull it off, and then convert that data into XML, and that's what we're doing on our side. So like it says here, the basic process really involves examining the text of that document, translating those characters into code that can be used for data processing, and that's exactly what we're going to be going through today. One of the really cool things about the OCR technology that we use, because they're not all the same, is it does use some artificial intelligence, machine learning, so that the more that this is used, the better it handles the information these agents are pushing towards you. So this is both on the agent side and on your side internally. We have several different workflows. So if an agent has submitted to you an ACORD form via email and it's been scanned, somebody internally can take that information, bridge that data into our system or into your system, and you're good to go. On the other side, we're able to create this workflow directly for the agent as well. So if they're interacting with your company within Appulate or going through Appulate in some capacity, which again, 80% of the agents in the country are interacting with our system in some way, giving them the ability to take these faxed or scanned ACORD forms may be a big deal for them, and to be able to do that very quickly so they don't have to sit there and type things out obviously makes you a more valuable market. So let me go over kind of what these workflows look like. This first workflow, we call it A-to-X, and basically all that stands for is ACORD to XML. So we're taking information from either these faxed or scanned ACORD forms, fillable PDF forms, which of course work the best, and then we can actually also take data directly from any agency management system out there. For the agent, this is all free, so it doesn't cost the agent anything at all. So the market's licensed this with us. So if you're an MGA carrier, you would license this technology. We'd be able to offer this to your agents who may probably already be using this, but now they're able to interact with you in the same way. We can convert this information into XML regardless of the source, and then spit that back out into your portal. So this is the Adex process. So it starts with an agent. They've got their information. They'll hit a button. They'll land in your portal. We're sending you the XML so that you can map this out in your portal. So by the time this user lands there, they've automatically been logged in and everything's been mapped out for them. It doesn't get easier than that. If you don't have a portal, like a front-facing form for these agents, what we can do is create one for you. So we do have a very automated, very sophisticated system that does a number of different things, which again, I'm happy to take you guys through. That's probably not what we're going to be going through today, but I can certainly do that another time. Same process, this agent, or internally, you're able to take this information, hit a button, land inside of our system where this agent's going to be met with an automated appetite guide, smart questionnaire. We can give them instant indications, rating information, automate the appointment process, binding process, signature process. All of it is adaptive so that it's based on the information that they put in, creating a number of if-then scenarios, and then letting them know exactly if this is something that meets your criteria and what your requirements are. All of this happens in about 10 to 15 seconds once that agent lands there, which is a pretty powerful tool. So there are, of course, a number of different ways to do this. Everything within our system, even past just that initial bridge of data, can be converted into XML to be utilized in a back-end system. So, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to utilize our system. So if you do have an API, we're able to integrate with that. We can handle these emailed submissions, which we're actually going to be talking about a little bit today, and I'll show you what that process looks like. We can handle rate, quote, and bind. We can do hybrid solutions. So for instance, if you have a portal outside of our system, but you want to use a portion of ours to kind of vet that data, we're able to do things like that. And of course, we're able to offer premium financing in our system as well. But Appulate, that's really where we sit. So we don't really go further than that. So we're not a policy admin system. We're not an agency management system. You may say we're a submission management system because that's really what we do. We automate the entire submission process for all of these agents going to you, again, regardless of what your workflow is. So let's see what it looks like. What I'm going to do, let me close this. I'm going to open up these forms here. So I've got a number of different forms. This first form here, we've got some loss history. We can see that this has been scanned. I went a little fast here. We've got a supplemental form in here. I've put 2 pages of that in here. And then now I've got an ACORD form, which is scanned and is upside down. So let's see if we can take this in. We can see when I zoom in that this information is definitely scanned. It's not the best looking thing, but that doesn't matter. We can take this in. So before I kind of continue, one of the biggest questions we get at this point is typically, how accurate is this? And like I mentioned, the more it gets used, the more accurate it is. It's hard to say specifically like if I put a number on it, it's hard to say. If it's a fillable PDF or an agency management system, 100% accuracy. If we have a scanned PDF, it really depends on the quality of that. And then if it's handwritten, there's a very low probability. And that has nothing to do with necessarily the way we utilize this technology, but just that technology in general. Everyone's handwriting is different, and it really just depends on the quality overall. So in this case, I tried to create a scanned PDF that was kind of moderate quality, so we have something kind of in the middle. It's not perfect, but it's certainly not horrible with a bunch of smudge marks and everything else. But you're going to see once we upload this document, it's going to let us go through a process which will allow us to fix and address any errors that may come up as we go through this. So that's kind of our workaround here, and I think it's pretty nice. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select Appulate as our print drive option. So in this scenario, what I'm doing is I'm either an agent that's trying to submit this ACORD form to you, or these forms to you, or I've emailed this to you, and now I'm in the role of one of your underwriters or someone in your staff that's trying to just input this information into whatever system that you're using. Again, this can be done a number of ways, either from an agency management system directly. It can happen from email, or if I just have this on my desktop, like in this situation, I can send that as well. We use our tool called Appulate Uplink to do this, and it takes about a minute to download that driver on your system. So once that's downloaded here, we just hit print, and now this information should start bridging. It will ask me for my login credentials first. So we'll wait till that comes up. There we go. It will save that for us, so we don't have to do it every time. I'll hit send, and now this information should start bridging over. So the first thing it's going to do is it's just going to go ahead and start processing this information. This is the most important part. Again, we want to make sure this information is accurate, and we want to start parsing these forms. So what I'll do is I'll be able to edit these, turn them, separate them, and I can also tag them. So if we're sending this over to you just as a document, or we're sending it into our system, we can actually pull some information directly from this, understand what this document is, and put it in the right place. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go in here and change this to supplemental form, and then I'll move down. This is where my ACORD form starts, so I'll mark that as ACORD. And of course, if I wanted to put any notes in here, information about that, I can certainly do this. Hit continue. And now it's going to start processing. Depending on how many forms are in here, or how difficult it is to read these forms, it'll take a little bit longer, but typically this process is very, very quick. If this was coming from an agency management system or fillable PDF, this process takes just seriously about a matter of seconds. It's very, very fast because it's not really having to do as much work. In this case, the technology is trying to read these forms, figure out where all this information is, and we've successfully mapped every single ACORD form and version out there to date. So here's kind of our data validation screen. So once it's done, it's going to bring up a copy of what we just bridged over. Let me move to this front page here so it's a little easier. So we can see how the scanned image isn't the best. But one of the cool things I can do is right at the top, I can take this little bar and I can slide it over either from what the OCR is capturing or what the source says. So I've got Johnny's Test Agency, 2611 Main Street. Let's just see if it got that. So I will scroll that back. I can click on this and I can see actually both versions. So if I do need to make any adjustments, I can. So in this case, it got most of it right, but I do need to make a couple adjustments. So I can do that right there. And so let's do this really quick here. Like I said, some are worse than others, and I've kind of done that on purpose here just to show you exactly what that would look like. But there we go. So now we've made a couple adjustments in here. We can do this throughout the entire document, or of course, we don't have to do that. It'll push the data over just as is, and it can be completed on the next screen, wherever that may be, whether that's an Appulate or within your portal. But we'll hit continue, and we'll verify which line of business it is. In this case, it is workers' comp, so we'll hit continue. And now at this point, there's a couple things that we can do. You know, again, based on that workflow I showed you, there's a couple places that this can go. So either this can go directly within our system, or of course it could go directly to yours. So let's see a little bit of both. So I'll start with Arrowhead. So this is the actual Arrowhead portal, and they've given me kind of a staging area for this. I can actually, let's see if I can pull this up in another tab. If there's anybody very techie here, you can kind of take a look at what this XML looks like. And if anybody here wants to dive into that and needs some samples of XML that we put out, I'd be happy to show you that. But this does show you kind of how that's been pulled across. But anyways, this is kind of my test account screen. So if we were going to go directly to you, of course, they wouldn't see this. They would just go directly to your market. And then here we go. It should automatically log them in and bridge that data across. So we can see that that's come across. I tried to leave this still bad so that you can see that this information really did bridge over. So pretty cool process. So it's mapped all of this out. And now I, as the agent, would just go through this process like I normally would, but of course not having to key in any additional information. And hopefully in this case, I had a decent enough ACORD form that it's going to capture this information. But like I said, it gets better with time the more that they use it. Of course, we want to try to transition them from that. So if we can get, if someone's having a difficult time with this, or they've gotten through their scanned ACORD forms, there's no reason to do any of that. What they can do is either start from their agency management system or fillable ACORD form. And let me show you what that looks like. So let's do another one. This time we're going to go into the Appulate system. So same exact process. I'm going to hit uplink. This is a fillable PDF, so you're going to be able to see the difference here. So we're going to go right through that exact same process. And this time, we don't have to do any data validation. You see how quick that was. Now I'm going to go directly into the Appulate system. And there we go. So everything's been mapped across. The agent can now interact with you within our system if this is how you've set it up. This would be kind of what an MGA looks like. And then, of course, we have our carrier up here, the same thing that we just did. So I can still send directly to that external portal or interact with these markets directly within our system. Like I said, knowing exactly in real time if this has been accepted, declined, if it doesn't meet our appetite guide in some kind of way, I'll know exactly what kind of questions may need to be answered. So if I select AmTrust, for instance, let's see what this says. Boom, there we go. Now we know exactly what questions need to be answered. It tells us if it's been declined, exactly why, and this agent or somebody internally can now go through this process, answering any requirements, uploading any additional forms that may need to be uploaded, etc. Let me kind of go back here, because the other thing I want to show you is this is the OCR one. We can tell the name's a little bit messed up. But again, yeah, so everything has been bridged over. The other thing our system does in the background is it creates any kind of other forms that may be needed. So it's automatically completing any ACORD forms, supplementals that you may need these agents to generate. So even if it did come from a scanned form and now you want to transform this into something a little bit more usable and cleaner, our system is creating these in the background. So at any time you can download these, take a look at them directly within our system. And you can see that we've created a new one. Anything that you change within here, so if this was actually 18 instead of 78, we can change that. And everywhere else, including in the questionnaire, across all forms, it's going to reflect exactly that. So very cool system here. And of course, same thing with any systems that you may be using. We can bridge that data across, download it from our system into yours, whatever you may need. So I'm going to pause really quick here, because of course I'm doing a lot of talking. I want to make sure if you have any questions, I can answer those questions. So I'm going to pull up my little box here. One of the questions, any chance we convert directly to JSON? Yeah, we do support that. So feel free to get in touch with me and we can set up a call with some of our more techie folks and we can dig into that a little bit more. There's a limit to my techie abilities. So there's a different language between engineers and myself, but I'll be happy to get the right person on the call and we can explore those different data options. But good question. All right. Feel free on the sidebar, you'll see a little question section. If you want to ask anything in there, feel free. I'm going to pull up my slide here a little bit and just kind of, again, dive into Appulate a bit more and some of our stats on usage. So let me just kind of give you guys a second. Okay. I'll be watching this, so if you're typing something right now, I'll definitely see it. But let me open my... Okay, I got it. Do we have a recording of this? Yes, so I'm going to send the recording of this demo that we're doing here to everybody after the call. So everybody who registered for this webinar will get an email from me. either today or tomorrow, depending on how quickly the video uploads, and then I'll send that over to you. If you want to check periodically, we'll be putting it on our YouTube channel as well. I always record my webinars and have a number of demos there as well. So if you go to YouTube and then just type in Appulate, you'll find our channel right away. I created a playlist that says carrier and MGA specific content, so feel free to find that. And yeah, you'll be able to find a lot of stuff in there. All right, so let me pull up this PowerPoint here. Okay, so I go into this a little bit more because of this, there's a lot of questions that come up about Appulate specifically, some of the things that we do, what our capabilities are, how we're interacting with agents, because of course, if you're an MGA or carrier, there's a lot of different workflows that you could be operating under, and you want to know, are you going to see a return on investment? Is this something that agents are actually interested in or not? But overwhelmingly, yes. We've got about 250,000 users in our system. That comprises about 80% of all retail agents in the country, and that's about 30,000 agencies total. We came up with those numbers based on some third-party statistic companies that looked into our system and usage across the country to determine how many folks are out there, how many folks are actually in our system, and in what ways they're using it. The other thing that we do outside of just the data that's in our system is I try to conduct at least an annual survey on our agents, asking them a number of questions about what they're looking for from their markets, what they're looking for from Appulate. Our entire system is guided around not just our customers, but our users as well. Agents don't pay for our system, but we want them to use it. So how can we get them to do that? So this question kind of reflects exactly what I'm talking about. One of the questions in our recent survey was, so what are you looking for from your markets? What do you want from carriers and MGAs? So here are the top 10 answers, and anything with a star next to it is something I believe that Appulate provides. Now, of course, this is something that they're looking for from you guys. So of course, if you have a different workflow process where you utilize Appulate as part of your workflow, but your quoting exists outside of our system or in a back-end system, they still want a fast quote turnaround. But nothing is more helpful than being able to not have to rekey information. A lot of companies invest a lot of resources into this with either staff or outsourcing these processes. So the fact that we can do this at a very low cost, because we've already built all of this stuff, mapped it out, our library is very extensive. We're able to relicense this out at a very affordable price, so that regardless of if you're a startup MGA or a very large national carrier, we're able to fit into your solution regardless, and I think that that's important. So right away, I mean, of course, competitive rates quotes, that's on you. Fast quote turnaround, that's a little bit of both. Good commission, personal touch service, they still want to see that. That's a huge thing. We hear a lot from agents that, besides just getting paid well, they want a good interaction with these markets, especially if you're an MGA. But the only way to do that is to have resources for it. So the argument is, well, how can we make the technology as efficient as possible so we can loosen up a little bit of time to have that personal touch with these agents and insureds as well. So this is a way that we can kind of solve that problem together. Ability to quote online, instant quotes, multiple offers and quotes. Obviously, we can do all of that and reflect that in our system. If you're an MGA, one of the really cool things we can do is right underneath your name, when the agent's working with you in our system, you can show all the carriers you're working with right underneath your name, giving the agent a little bit more control, being able to select which carriers they want you to submit to, and being able to see automatic rating information if we have that. We just recently brought somebody on board who has, let's say, about 10 different carriers, and a large number of them we've already worked with those APIs. So like AmTrust, Employers, Liberty, Travelers, Hiscox, a lot of these folks, we've built in an API or at least some sort of rating into our system. So it's a very valuable tool if you're an MGA, and adversely, if you're a carrier, this is equally as important to you to be able to offer this directly to agents or through your carriers, so that an agent has a direct experience with your API in our system through your agent. So that's a big deal. We can't handle your high carrier rating. That's very up to you, and binding authority as well, but an automated process is on here. That's a big deal to a lot of these agents. So that's very consistent with what we understand, of course, why we put so much time and effort into this, and I think why so many folks are doing the same, especially right now while everyone's on webinars and working from home. The new norm is how can we be more efficient using all this technology that's out there, and historically this industry has been a little bit behind. So again, having a technology like OCR in place so that you can do a little bit of both, regardless of where they're starting, I think is important. So let me keep going here. So another good bit of information, of course, again, everyone can see a recording of this, and on YouTube, I have this all over the place. But this is a great question. This kind of gives you an example of how far we dig into things. So another question we asked agents is, what classes are you currently writing, and what classes would you like to write more of? The reason I put this up there is a couple of different reasons. We like to put out a lot of information to our agents. Out of those 250,000, we've got about 80,000 subscribed specifically to hearing about new markets that come on board with Appulate. So if you're trying to increase distribution, increase your footprint, we can do that a number of ways. But at least we want to make sure we put this out in a press release, put some training videos out there, do some webinars, something to let your agents and other agents know that you're available. And there are a huge number of agents that want to know that. But this kind of gives you an idea of what they're looking for. So we like to try to work together as a partnership with you. We're not a technology company that builds something and sends it to you and just kind of lets you do this all on your own. We want to make sure we're as helpful as possible and there with you hand in hand with these agents. And one way we do that is just by guiding expectations properly. By understanding what these agents are writing, what they're looking for, can help guide a number of things from marketing content to the programs that you advertise in the system or the programs that you build in the system. This is very important, as well as the lines of business. So one of the interesting things about this is a lot of them kind of drop off after the first 10 to 15, but lines of business is very scattered. It seems like agents do a little bit of everything. And so a number of things do very well in our system, even if they're niche programs or lines of business. And we've done a little bit of everything from, of course, standard workers' comp, GL, to personal lines, to pet insurance, and all kinds of things. And they seem to do very well within our system because, of course, these agents are able to work in a standardized environment. So even if they've got that information in there for workers' comp and they're working with a number of different markets over there, but you offer GL or BOP, they're able to interact with you exactly in the same way. They don't have to relearn a new technology platform every time they want to submit to a new market. And that's one of the biggest complaints that we hear from agents. So the fact that we can kind of isolate that down to one central hub, even if you do have an external system, is a big deal for these agents. And of course, time savings is big too. I've got some calculators so we can work together if anybody wants to connect with me offline to see what this would look like for you specifically, because of course it's a little bit more complicated if you're a carrier or MGA, depending on what the workflows look like. But to kind of put dollars behind the amount of time saved on the agent side, just with data entry, the process saves them a lot of time. And this is, by the way, based on another survey we did of these agents and our data. So we put it together to understand how fast agents are going through the system, how many submissions are they processing through our system. Currently, on average, we see about 17,000 submissions processed a month through Appulate. Looks like it's about 40 submissions a month per agent. On average, it fluctuates a little bit, so I picked a conservative number here. Same with the time saved per agent. We heard all kinds of numbers from 15, 20 minutes all the way up to days and weeks worth of time, just of course because they're not having to do so much back and forth with their markets, which translated to about 25 hours per month per agent. On the national average of about $50,000 salary for an agent, they save with these numbers $7,000 a month, that's a pretty powerful thing. To be able to share that with your agents is a big deal. So here's some more data. I love data if you can't tell, but it's important. I think it's important to show exactly how this works. Since 2016, we've really spent a lot of resources with trying to understand these agents, reaching out to them, finding better ways to communicate with them. So we bring a partner on board. We can really get this information out there, whether you want to keep that with just your agent network or you want to expand that to the entire country. We're able to meet you wherever you want to go. Since we've done that, our usage has just absolutely skyrocketed. If you were to go to our website and look at our market list, you could call anybody on that list, and I'm sure they'll say nice things about us. Just mainly because of this, and we've put so much time and effort into considering this a partnership, that the number of markets being selected in our system is huge. So if you're looking for agents who are looking for new markets and you want to be able to have them find you and in a very effective way without having to rekey information, working with their system and yours, there's just really not a better place for that. And of course, just on our side, the reason why we do all of these things is we want agents to use our system. So I can put these numbers together and brag about it on a webinar. But since then, our logins have increased tremendously. And every year, we've broken every monthly record, which is very cool. So how do we inform agents? There's a number of ways we do this. I mentioned our email blast. We have about 80,000 subscribed. Well, we put together landing pages for different programs and markets if we need to work on that with you. Market directory, which you can access right from our website, and you can see everybody we're working with. We have agent user groups and piloting groups. So we have a number of agents who are, they're happy to help, and they use Appulate every single day. If you have something you want to bring online, get some feedback about the process, and you don't work with any agents currently, we're able to help you with that. We do a number of webinars, personal outreach. We actually have a premium version for agents so that they can, so they'll actually pay for our system and then use additional tools we've developed specifically for them. We have, then of course, blogs, social media, YouTube, etc. So here's how we can get started. Definitely get in touch with me if you want to take a look at this. I'd be happy to test this out with any ACORD form you have, regardless of quality. We can really kick the tires on the system. I can even give you a free account so you can play with this on your own. We can take a look at that XML that's being created, talk about these different data versions. If ACORD XML is not something that you can work with, we'll see how we can work with you. But the first thing to do is let's hop on a call. 10-15 minutes, let's talk about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. I can answer any questions that you may have. We can dive into a demo if you'd like to, but let's at least figure out what the scope of work is. If you have an API, we'll have to take a look at that, figure out what the workload is going to look like for something like that. But then we'll go ahead and put some pricing together, a contract. If that all looks good, we go through implementation. We have an extremely fast implementation process, even with a customized portal. Typically for a line of business or two, for a customized portal back to front is 60 to 90 days. It's extremely short. For the Adex process, just moving data from systems or ACORD forms into your system, I could turn that on tomorrow. It's already all done. It's just a matter of getting it licensed, sending you that XML data so it can be mapped out properly, testing it and turning it on. So very, very quick process. Here's my information. So if you do want to get in touch with me, here's the best way. I'll also be sending it an email to everybody, so you'll have this in your signature line. There's a link which you can click on in my signature line, or you can type the one right there that says bit.ly/John from Appulate. If you go there, it takes you directly to my calendar. You can see all my availability and pick a time that works for you, and we can hop on a call. And I would certainly love to do that with you. But yeah, so that's it. Let me look at the questions again, see if there's any questions that you may have. I know we've kind of bounced around to some different things. And of course, the OCR part of this is pretty short. But let me know if you have any questions. I'll take a look at this and give everyone about 5-10 minutes here. And we may just go ahead and close this out if we don't have any questions. All right. So would this integrate with easy links? I'd have to see what our integration is specifically. If they can, regardless of what the system is, if they can ingest XML, we're good to go. So that may be a question that you may have for easy links. Of course, we're able to bridge data from any system into Appulate, but I apologize, I just don't know offhand. I know we've worked with easy links in some capacity for one of our markets at least. But yeah, I would need to just check to see what that integration is specifically. The problem is they're all a little bit different. And unless we have some kind of partnership or work with them directly, there's not necessarily a full integration. So we've done that with Nexture. We've done this with IMS, iEngineering. There's a bunch of folks out there that they sell also like a portal, but they use Appulate technology for the first part, which is just to move data into that system. So you'll notice our name come up a lot. If you were to go talk to iEngineering, they'd build a custom portal for you, do all this really cool stuff, policy admin, system rating, all these neat things. Same with us, but they're not necessarily a competitor with ingesting this information. They use our tools, which is really cool. Okay, see if we have any questions. Someone was asking about handwritten ACORD forms. So the best thing to do with handwritten ACORD forms is to try to get agents to stop doing that. I can't think of a situation where handwriting an ACORD form would be faster than using some type of digitized method for a number of reasons, not just with getting the data to you that first time, but just annually having that information somewhere, being able to develop reports, a number of different things. So if we can't convert them, our OCR, I've seen it work with some handwritten stuff, but I just don't think that technology is that great, even just in the world in general. It's very tough to pull handwritten information. Now, we can pull some of it. I've seen it work, but again, it's very low probability we're going to get all of it correct. Zapier, I'm not familiar with Zapier. Good question. Let me see if I can pull up some information on that very quickly. There are so many. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them. I'm not actually even familiar with what they do or who they are, but we could certainly dive into that. If that's something you use in your workflow, I'd love to know a little bit more about that. There's so many different third-party vendors out there, and they all work a little bit differently. So that would be a good thing for us to hop on a call and discuss. Okay, any other questions? Okay, they make automated connections between applications. So I'm sure if that's the case, then we could utilize our technology alongside what you're doing probably pretty easily. I mean, if this is something that they're already doing, again, I mean, for companies that do similar things utilize Appulate all the time for this. I think that would be a very productive conversation to have. But appreciate that. I'm probably, as soon as I hop off this, going to look into what they are. So next time I get that question, I'll know exactly what that is. Or if we can hop on the call, we'll be able to talk about that in depth. But thanks for the questions. All right. Okay, I think this GoToMeeting is about to start kicking me off here in a couple minutes. But hey, I really appreciate everybody joining today. And again, I'm going to send an email out so you guys will have a recording of this. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me directly. If I don't know the system or know the answer, we'll find the answer, or somebody on our staff definitely knows it. We've been doing this for such a long time that I know I can tap on someone's shoulder, and they've dealt with one of these companies for sure. So let's definitely do that, and I'd be happy to answer those questions. But either way, I hope everyone stays safe and well. I appreciate everyone's time, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.